Good morning. Broadcasting live from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the place I was born and raised, a place of infinite inspiration. This is a very eclectic place. It's an intersection of culture. There's still kind of a clash of cultures. Indigenous people, Latinos, Anglo-Americans, people of various backgrounds come together here, and it's apparent, coming from Western Colorado, which is predominantly kind of white, just how varied and beautiful my childhood was, and the exposure and connection I felt with it, to my mind, what is ostensibly like the dream, or proposed dream of America, which is, inclusivity, all dreams welcome. And, that's in my heart. It's in the heart of what I do in art and just in life. And so it's wonderful to be here, visiting my grandmother, who's just this absolute gem of a human, and probably in her later stages of life. And I was able to show her some of the pieces from Art League, which at this point, now are like 21 pieces. And, I think she knew I could draw, of course, because she saw me do it as a child. But as I've spoken about before, I'd never really taken it seriously. It was just a curiosity of mine. So it was very cool to share this with her, and she got a kick out of it, and that was just such a wonderful moment yesterday. So, but this morning, I have carved out just a little bit of time, as everyone is still sleeping, to talk about a few things. I wanted to go back and begin with how I found myself contributing and doing art in this space. So basically, I knew very peripherally about NFTs a few years ago, and I had read an article about Robert Montgomery, who's my, not to be hyperbolic, but my favorite living artist, just because his work is so grand and yet so humane, and he kind of wields this very large stick, but uses it humanely to kind of deconstruct the iconography of advertising, and he uses these billboards and large signs and illuminates them with such beautiful, surreal, dreamlike prose and poetry, these kind of aphorisms. And you can see that in the piece that I did. It's one of his. All palaces are temporary palaces, and I loved that, and I loved superimposing that onto a baseball field as the field lights. But in any case, Robert Montgomery is just a fountain of inspiration for me, and he's such a gracious, warm person, with a young family, and I've written him before, and we've had a bit of a correspondence, but both kind of got busy, and he's just wonderful, wonderful artist and a good person, it seems. And anyway, I saw this article about his art, and he had kind of dabbled with NFTs, and I thought, I read about his NFT project. I thought, oh my gosh, this might be an opportunity if I can figure out how to utilize the platforms, how to collect a Robert Montgomery, because his work is, apart from maybe his books, which are also very expensive, I don't know that his paintings or his works that are really public installations are accessible. And most of the time they're in far off places, so this was like an opportunity to collect him. So I looked into the project. It's wonderful. He dropped it on Known Origin, and I figured out how to use an ETH wallet and collected one of the, I think it's 10 pieces, and I collected the ultimate piece that I think it's the 10th, and I believe it's called You Are a Free Agent of Sunlight. Altogether, the piece, I think, is like a condemnation or at least a critique of the NFT space, or digital art, really. And at the time, I just thought that was pretty provocative and interesting, and I didn't know enough about NFTs. Oddly enough, this was the open door that I walked through to get to the NFT space, because it conjured enough magic that even though, it was a critique, I became fascinated by, what he was speaking about. So, and honestly, I really feel like I've written him recently about the Art League piece I did in his honor, and if we have a correspondence again, I might try to onboard him and just let him know my story with interacting with his NFT and say, I understand that, I understand your point of view about critiquing digital art to some degree, but I really feel that the beauty and power of it is accessibility, and that it's, this gated world of mystery and art where just seldom few geniuses, are permitted in the hallowed halls. I think we're sort of demystifying that and deconstructing it, and the new museum is this place here that we're all sharing this conversation. We kind of have this ongoing salon, and I wish that he would join, because I feel that, I have had the opportunity to meet and connect with so many brilliant artists through this space, and it's such a gift. It's so strange, really, that his critique, the critique of my favorite artist, is what led me to this place, with all of you. The two artists that I connected with first are Mayowa Lawal and Diego Robot, as a result of entering the NFT space. And I'd asked somebody who was kind of an ETH maxi, somebody who's pretty well known in the Ethereum space and has built some interesting things and happens to live in the small town in Colorado where I live. I'd asked him, what should I do to figure this all out? It's a lot to take in, especially from an outsider's point of view. And he said, just find a community and get involved. And so I did. I just got on crypto Twitter and just kind of found some communities that seemed like people were making art that I could resonate with. And it was very, very early on for me, just kind of tinkering. And but I wound up on a platform called Voice, that my friend Diego and also Mayowa Lawal were on. And I believe I was driving to the house at Redstone and from Carbondale, and on my way into Carbondale, I was, I shouldn't be looking at art and driving, and generally speaking don't, but I was so enthusiastic about this possibility of sharing art in the space, and I was just kind of checking one of these platforms before service cuts out, right as you drive up to Mount Sopris, and I saw a piece by Mayowa called Mixed Faith that just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I believe I stopped the car and turned it around and went back to a cafe so I could get Wi-Fi and write him and say, I would love to collect this. What can I do to collect this? I love your work. And by this miracle of circumstance, he happened to be kind of online, and we got on a call. I can't remember which app we used. It's not really important, I guess, but we got on a call together and we chatted, and I realized his genius in that moment and his vision, and I could see the potential of this huge star, and we just connected over influences and our interests, and he was in Africa, I was in Western Colorado, and we just had this amazing connection. So, we affectionately refer to each other as Artsmen, which I believe he started, and I'll refer to him as the Artsman. The Artsman was there for an initial release of The Myth of Art, which is a project I've just released the first page of, a serialized storybook about the first act of mimesis, when a child realized that the world was replicable. And the Artsman was extremely gracious and kind enough to read through the story and give me feedback. And I mean, that's so huge for me. You know, in a world where there's so many voices, it's hard to pay attention to everything. He took the time to read this, and I was just floored. And it's amazing now to be releasing something that that piece of work that I've been working on for a couple of years. And so I've been working on that release, A Myth of Art, but also contemporaneously working on a collaborative piece with the Artsman. And that's part of a series called Art League Mirror, which I've kind of alluded to in some of the pieces, even from the beginning, like the mimesis instructions. There's a mirror. I think it's in the upper right corner. The idea is that we're reflecting beauty to one another, and that we can venerate and exalt each other. And so it's sort of the next stage. It's open season on collabs, and of course, the Artsman being one of the first people I truly collaborated and connected with, is an obvious first choice. Him and Diego. And so we've released that piece. I love it. He sent me one of his amazing pieces, which is a self-portrait, wearing this beautiful cape of African fabric and holding up, the initial piece was holding up the sun. And when he sent it to me, I just knew immediately, like, he's going to be lifting a baseball, like Atlas, like he's carrying the world. And so it was a perfect collaboration because it was so seamless. And I dropped it without even sending it back to him because I knew that he would love it. And that's the type of connection we have. And so that piece is live, and I think it's beautiful. I'm also just about to release the Diego robot mirror piece. Diego probably, certainly deserves his own podcast in terms of all that he's contributed to my experience as an artist and the places I've gone in this space. Let me just say that Diego Robot is the spearhead for me in terms of fearless self-expression, just fearless free-form expression. And a quick anecdote about him is that I kind of followed him along in this space on a decentralized social network, and I was really taken with how prolific and wonderful his pieces were. And I just reached out to him. I said, I love what you're doing. Would you be open to collaborating? And his response, of course, was yes, absolutely, always down to collab. And he sent me this heart painting, just a painting of a heart, and he said, do whatever you want with it. And I looked at this thing, I opened it up, pretty good sized file. I opened it up and I was mystified. It was beautiful. It belonged in a museum. It was just so, it was as like a Basquiat, except less context and diagrams and paint over context. It was just the heart, but so much there, and such brilliant brushwork, and clearly just free form. And he has this brilliant way of establishing what is essential and painting that. And that's kind of the key, I think, one of the keys. But he sent that to me, and we did some collabs with it. I've done hundreds of pieces with that heart, and that heart found its way into the Mimesis instructions. It found its way into the Basquiat Art League piece that I released. It's the Sacred Blue Heart. And we've done some word art too, hearkening to, back to Robert Montgomery, that said, throw a stone through the shop window and take back your one sacred heart. And this is always an homage to that act, that benevolent act on Diego's part of sharing with me something that's really beautiful in a space where there's still, and I don't really understand it, there's still exclusivity, and this idea that you only can make value by selling rarity, and by gatekeeping and promoting the myth that only a select few people actually have the gift. It's actually kind of what Myth of Art is about, and it all comes together in my mind in the end. Everything intersects. All of these stories, all of these people, all of this exaltation comes together. But essentially, if you're still listening, the message is that gift is yours. I'm reflecting this to you. I'm reflecting to you that you belong in those hallowed halls, just as any of the greats do. And that, to quote an African proverb that Talib Kweli talks about on Reflection Eternal, which is one of my favorite albums, with DJ High Tech, he says, if you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance. And I tell this to people in life all the time, and they sort of scoff and say, well, I don't know. It's the truth. As artists, I think maybe we just have the audacity to call ourselves such, and we are we're the liberators. We're the people who spearhead what it means to just express freely. And art really, just as the discovery of the myriad nature of form and experience, and anything that contributes to the dialectic of human growth and expansion is art. And that can be something as simple as saying hello to a stranger in a coffee house, or walking down the street and noticing urban decay on the wall, and or painting, or sculpting, or recording music, or just playing music. I mean, anything that expands human experience, So the myth in the Myth of Art that I'm attempting to dispel is the idea that not everyone can do art. It's just not true. Everyone has magic in them, and that's what this is all about. So I want to thank all of you for following this meandering story, and I can't wait to reveal to all of you what happens next in Art League, in Art League Mirror, and also in the Myth of Art. I think you'll love it. It's a story born of love, of curiosity, of childlike wonder, and I'm excited to be doing all of this, and I thank you very much. We'll see you on Chain.